What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction video, and here we have how India is destroying China's African dream. Now, before we can jump into exactly what this dream is, if you happen to enjoy the video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash the like. Also, if you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, there's a link down in the description section where you can sign up and receive exclusive benefits that I think you'll enjoy. Let's dive right in.
This is the country of Nigeria. Here, several Indian companies are making massive inroads with nearly $14 billion in investments. Jindal Steel and Power, the third largest private steel producer in India, is injecting $3 billion into the Nigeria's steel industry, while Indorama Corporation is boosting its petrochemical facilities with an investment of $8 billion. Not just this, the Nigerian government has reached a $1 billion partnership with the Indian government to help strengthen production of defense equipment.
Nigeria has secured nearly $14 billion in pledges from Indian investors for various sectors, including steel, petrochemicals, power generation, and defense.
At first glance, these investments might seem unusual. But if you observe carefully, these investments are part of a carefully calculated move by India, not only in Nigeria, but in the whole of Africa. If you zoom out on this map, you'll see India is adopting a similar strategy in other African countries like Kenya, Uganda, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, Ghana, Mauritius, Egypt, Togo, and Mali. Now, the obvious question is why? Why is India willing to commit such a massive amount of resources into Africa, especially in time of such political and economic turmoil on the continent?
East Africa, where protests are ongoing in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi.
Riot police, some on horseback, have been deployed in the capital, Nairobi.
Almost 140 years ago, in 1884, the Berlin Conference kicked off the scramble for Africa, ushering in an era of European colonialism. The United Kingdom, Germany, France, Portugal, and Belgium, along with others, divided up the continent for their interests. Besides vast natural resources, Africa was also a valuable strategic location for controlling trade routes between Europe and its faraway colonies of India and Asia. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, Africa saw a wave of liberation movements, especially after World War II weakened European powers. From the 1940s to the 1970s, over 45 African countries achieved independence.
In the rapidly changing pattern of African countries, South Africa joins the ranks of independent nations as the country becomes a republic and withdraws from the British Commonwealth of Nations.
The 21st century has seen a renewed scramble for Africa, but this time the intentions are different. One of the key players in this new era is India. With a shared history of colonialism, India and Africa built strong relations during the Cold War, emerging together from imperial rule as part of the non-alignment movement. As India's economic growth surged, it has reignited its interest in Africa, driven by some strategic reasons that we will discuss in some time. Between 1991 and 2022, Indian trade with Africa jumped from $893 million in 1991 to $97.8 billion in 2023. The African Union is now the fourth largest trading partner for India, behind the United States, China, and the United Arab Emirates. The continent is projected to be home to as much as 25% of the global workforce by the end of this decade, and the regional GDP is already $2.6 trillion.
25% of the global workforce is insanity.
Look at this map. These 6 African countries have been booming economically, having been dubbed the lion economies. They have a collective GDP of roughly $1 trillion. Most of them have seen very high growth rates since 2010. This is driving Indian investments in Africa, which is projected to reach $150 billion by 2030. India has already committed $14 billion to Nigeria alone, focusing on steel, petroleum, power plants, and defense industry. Nigeria is not an isolated target for India. Elsewhere, India has bought up offshore blocks in Egypt, Côte d'Ivoire, Libya, and Sudan.
Now, India's outreach to Africa, that has hit yet another milestone. Nigeria, it secured pledges worth $14 billion from Indian investors.
Several Indian companies are actively gaining ground in different industries across the continent. For example, Indian motorcycles have taken the African market by storm due to their affordability and superior quality. Brands like Bajaj and TVS dominate African roads, with Bajaj alone capturing approximately 40% of the market share. Bajaj has sold between 2.4 and 2.7 million two-wheelers in Africa, making it one of the top sellers across more than a dozen African markets. The most popular Indian bike in Africa is the Bajaj Boxer, renowned for its durability and fuel efficiency, which is critical for the diverse and often challenging African terrain. Indian bikes have gained a reputation for being more reliable than Chinese models, which often suffer from poor build quality. In fact, only 2 Indian brands have managed to crush more than 160 Chinese brands across Africa. This is a massive
160 Chinese brands, and these 2 Indian brands are crushing them. Is crazy.
Feat for India, but New Delhi's interests are not limited to infrastructure, pharma, automobiles, and petroleum, but it has some bigger plans.
हमारा लक्ष्य है कि 2024-25 तक हम एक्सपोर्ट के इस आंकड़े को $1.5 बिलियन से बढ़ाकर $5 बिलियन तक ले जाएंगे.
In April 2024, India deployed defense attachés to African countries like Tanzania, Mozambique, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Ivory Coast. A defense attaché is a military officer assigned to an embassy in a foreign country. Their job is to act as a bridge between the military of their home country and the host country, promoting their nation's military equipment, specifically focusing on defense exports. India is already making significant inroads, exporting over $500 million worth of defense equipment to African nations between 2017 and 2022. For instance, Indian defense companies have supplied Dhruv advanced light helicopters and surveillance systems to Mauritius, armored vehicles to Mozambique, and Dornier patrol aircraft and radars to Seychelles. These are not significant exports worth praising, but here's what New Delhi is trying to do. On the back of these early inroads, India is now pitching new equipment like the Tejas light combat aircraft, priced at about $42 million each, and the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher system. There's also the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, developed jointly by Russia and India, is known for its speed, precision, and versatility, making it a highly sought-after weapon system globally. India recently delivered these missile systems to Philippines in a deal worth $375 million. And countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and United Arab Emirates have shown interest too.
India's out here raking it in. You feel? India know what they doing out here. They raking in the cash. They making investments in the different countries. India's amazing.
If you look at this chart, India's defense exports have surged from $185 million in 2016 to $2.6 billion in 2023, exporting to over 85 countries. India aims to reach $5 billion in defense exports by 2025, with a big chunk expected from Africa. Of course, these exports are no match to the top arms exporters in the world, led by the United States, which is why India is focusing on countries in need of cost-effective and reliable defense solutions, and Africa fits the bill perfectly. The Dhruv helicopter, for example, costs around $8 million, much cheaper than its Western counterparts. If we put the defense exports aside and look at the bigger picture, much of India's interests in Africa have to do with critical minerals and China.
The past 2 decades were witness to China's growth in becoming Africa's largest economic partner.
Between 2000 and 2022, China committed a massive $170 billion to projects in Africa, driven by the Belt and Road Initiative. This 2019 map shows the true scale of Chinese investments made in this vast continent. Some of these are massive in their scale and importance. For example, the railway lines from Mombasa to Nairobi and Addis Ababa to Djibouti, connecting the important ports and financial centers of Africa. China's focus on minerals essential for the EV industry, such as cobalt and lithium, has seen substantial investments in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the country that holds over 60% of the world's cobalt reserves. These strategic moves have not only strengthened China's role in the global EV supply chain, but also gained massive influence across the continent. But this doesn't stop anyone from being suspicious of the so-called Chinese debt trap. As a result, some African countries are rethinking their relationship with China, and some are suspending contracts with Chinese firms.
Niger's military government has decided to suspend its oil exports to China.
The West African nation's consumer watchdog has now shut down the Chinese market.
In April 2020, Tanzanian President John Magufuli threatened to cancel a $10 billion project and labeled it as a killer Chinese loan. Then, Ghana scrapped a $236 million contract to develop an intelligent traffic management system. And then in 2021, DRC President Felix Tshisekedi called for a review of 2008 mining contracts with China, seeking fairer terms since only China is getting richer while the DRC remains poor. On the other hand, Chinese investment inflows are also drying up. In 2016, China lent $28.5 billion in loans to African nations, but by 2022, that figure dropped to less than $1 billion. The risk is that China has overextended itself, allowing India an opportunity to intensify its reach. It won't be easy for India because China has established 25 economic and trade zones in 16 African countries, creating a strong relationship of interdependence, and India cannot dole out credit lines like China did. New Delhi is aware of these limitations and is actively seeking to establish a unique strategy in line with its strengths. So, with China and India locked into a tug-of-war, who has the best chance? But more importantly, is it possible that Africa can be the one that gains the most from this influence war, as they deserve to? Share your opinion in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to support our work.
I think Africa is gaining a lot by these two trying to gain that influence over there in Africa. But it seems like China's had to bring it back a lot on the amount of loan that they've given to India. They're overextending themselves, and nobody wants to get caught in any kind of debt trap. And it seems like India's coming in. Of course, like you said, they can't dole out money like China can, but it seems like they're starting to make investments. India's economy is on the rise. They're becoming a richer country, and so over time, they could gain more favor over in Africa, but at the moment, it seems like it'd probably be China that's got the most influence in Africa. But that is all we have for this video. If you guys enjoyed that, make sure you check out this one next. Also, don't forget to subscribe and get a video a like. See you guys on the next one.